Welcome back to a new episode of Mastering Programming and in tutorial 2 of our Spline playlist. Now in the first tutorial, make sure you go and check it out. I'll leave a link somewhere. We learned all about what Spline actually is, what it can do, and we also had a bit of a look on the canvas and how we can sort of like start a project, and just very quickly showed how we can add elements and how easy it is. Now what I want to do in this tutorial specifically is actually dive deeper, because it is our first tutorial, into how our home page looks like and how we can start a project, and then how we can actually add elements and what each of the information means, and basically just set up all the terminology for us so that in the future, as we go with these tutorials, it becomes easier and easier for us to follow along and actually create beautiful things. Now the first thing that you can see is we're now in the home page, and to get there all you need to do is log in or sign up. Again, it's very easy and it's entirely for free, so I'll leave the area for you to explore, but once you do create an account you will arrive here, and you might have some sort of templates in the get started tab, but I have it all deleted and we're going to start a new project together now. So again, just a reminder, you've got all your tutorials over here, and you can click on view all, and that will show you all the tutorials created by the Spline team themselves on making 3D paths, full effects, making variables, create particles, whatever it is, it's all there available for you to look at. You can also have a look at the library and you'll be able to see existing items that have been created. Some of it is just like characters, some of it is entire keyboards, entire buildings, buttons, and so on. It's all very useful actually. Now what I will do is I'll go back to our home screen and I'm going to click on new file. So this is how we create a new project, and we don't give it a name or anything yet. Now you'll see that it asks you if you would like to start with a template, and some of these are amazing to start with. However, I'm going to choose not to start with anything just because at the moment I want this to be all from scratch. So I'm just going to click outside of the screen. Now you're presented with this, and the first thing you're presented with is a tab over here, a tab at the top, and then a tab all the way on the right side. You've also got a circle here, we're going to go over what that means, and then finally one last menu option over here. Now the first thing that I want to go over is just the controls. Now if you, without clicking on anything, just with the mouse try to move around, you'll realize that you can't actually move around. If I do this, it's just a selecting tool, and as I'm going it selects all the elements that I hover over. But what if you want to have a look at a different perspective? Now you might try to right click and that doesn't work as well, and what you can do is if you click on the middle of your mouse, so if you click on the scroll wheel, for example, on my mouse, your mouse can be different, but if you click on it you can pan the screen around so that you can look at it from a different perspective. Now what if you want to look at it from sort of rotate it a little bit? Now not rotate the object, just rotate the camera or your view. What you'll need to do is hold option. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm clicking option. For you it might be control, and just drag your mouse around and you'll be able to view the element that you're looking at from a different perspective. You can also go XYs, YYs. So it's really good at very quickly just being able to rotate the camera. Now let's say I'm over here and I want to go to the original view on how this looks like. If I click reset, it takes me all the way to the original location. So sometimes, maybe let's say you move all the way and you lost your view and you don't know how to get there, the best way to get there is just right click anywhere on the screen and click on reset camera, and it will just take you to the original perspective. Now let's explore some of the other ways we can view things. So you've got this over here on the right side, and again let's move all the way here. If you hover over this, you've got reset. If I click reset, it takes me back to the original view. You've also got these really helpful angles. So let's say I quickly just want to look on the side of the object. If I click on the red, you can see that it rotates it. If I click on this, you can see that it rotates me around the x-axis, just like this. If I want to have a look at it from a top view, Y, now I'm looking at the top. If I want to look at it from the bottom, now I'm looking at it from that perspective as well. And if I click again, now I'm from the bottom. If I click on the send on the top, now I'm back to my original view. And at any given point, if you're all of a sudden confused about where you're actually looking from, you can just right click and click reset camera, and it will reset you. Now we've also got a perspective view. So if I click on this, now we're looking at it directly from the camera. And if I go ahead and do this, you can see that now we're looking straight into it, not exactly from where the player will be looking. And if I click option and rotate, you will see the same thing. Now we are rotating around the object itself. Let's go back over here and let's click on reset camera, and now we're in the original view. So now we know how to like sort of move around. Now let's have a look at our menus. Now on this side over here, you've got this sort of rectangle, and this has some of the elements or all the elements that are added on your project. If I click over here, you can see that we can create like a new file, duplicate the file. We can import an item like an image into our project. We can even choose to move this project somewhere else. We can have a look at the version history. So if I added any element and I deleted it and I want to see all the versions of my project, we can click version history and it will show all the other versions. So you can see that there was a version that was saved at 1033, it's now 1037. And as I add different things, you will see that there is more of these and we can have a look at them. So I'm just gonna go back. Now, if I go ahead over here, you can see that we can save this to local. We can choose to zoom in. We can also choose to zoom out, and we can reset the camera, all the options that are here. But basically this is all like the project information. I'm gonna go ahead and close this. So we're back to our original view. Now let's jump down a little bit. We're on the objects now. And here you can see all the elements that we've added. So you can see that we've got our light over here. If I click on this, you can see that we've got a rectangle. And every single time I add any other element, you will see that it gets added onto this panel over here. If I've added any assets, I can come over here and we'll be able to see things like the colors that we added. If we added any images, you will see it. If we added any music for background, you'll be able to view over here. Obviously at the moment it is empty, and we'll go over that in a few seconds. Let's go back. Now on the right side over here, you've got all the elements or all the options that you can do per item. So the easiest way for us to sort of like edit an item is we can click on the rectangle, and you can see that allows us to select the rectangle. Now something else is I can choose to hide this, and now it's hidden. And if I click on run, you can see that we no longer have the rectangle. So let's go ahead and close this. By the way, to run the project, so to see how the user would see it once you publish this, you click on display element and you can see that it's hidden. But if I go ahead and click on the eye again and click on play, you can see that it is over here. There we go, and we can interact with it. Let's close this. So we are on agreement that on the left side here we'll have all the elements that we added. And just, you know, to experiment a little bit more with this, we can click on circle, and I'm just going to add a circle over here. And you can see that once we clicked on this and we added it on our screen, we now have the ellipse or the circle added in our panel. So again, every single time we add any element on our canvas, we're going to be introduced with an ellipse, or sorry, we're going to be adding the item on our left panel here. And the best thing is that we can actually search it up and we can find it over here. Now, what about this panel over here? So like I mentioned, this panel allows us to really edit a few different elements. And I guess to make this easy, let's add a 3D object. So I'm going to add a cube like this. And now this is different because we don't just have the X and the Y. Now, if I go ahead and rotate this, you can see that this is a full 3D object. So it is a full cube. And you can see that it also got added over here. And once I select it, on the far right element, we've got so many different options. And I guess at some stage it can be a little bit confusing on what this is. But what it is, it's basically all the options that you can change or edit on that cube. So we can start, I'll leave state for another time and events, but for now, let's see what we can do. Now, every single time, pay attention to this row over here. As I'm moving it around the X axis, you can see that the X value changes. And if I go ahead, for example, and put 0 and click enter, you will see that it changes. Now on the Y value, if I go down and up, you can see that the Y value changes. And again, if I click 0, it will change. The best thing about this is that you can change it by dragging it and dropping it, or like moving it around like this. But at the same time, if you want it to be at a specific value, let's say I want it to start at 0, we can simply come over here and put 0. Now, if I want it to be at 50, you can see that it moves it up. Now, I want it to be on top of the rectangle, so I can keep increasing this, let's say 200, and now it's over here. And finally, the Z axis, this changes how the depth of it. So obviously, in order for us to see it, it's a bit harder to see it now because we're looking at it from the same perspective. So let's change this to 0, and I'm going to choose to look at it from this view, or maybe actually let's go back, and I'm going to hold Option and move it like this. And now if I select my cube, as I'm increasing the Z, you can see that it's going backwards and forwards like this compared to the rectangle, which is at Z0. So again, let's go back and change it to 0. Let's see what are some of the options that we also have. We've got scale and we've got rotation. Now, scale is really useful because I can click on this, and again, I can use any of these corners to expand on the actual element size. So I can make it this big, or I can make it smaller. I can choose how big I want it to be. And there is something here to know. You've got the shape itself, which we can see that we can control it using the size. So if I put, for example, 50, it will change. 50 and 50, you will see that it has now become a much smaller cube. And I personally like using the sizing itself of the object to make it big or small, but you can also come over here and scale it. So let's say I lock this, I can make this 2, and all of them will change, like magnify it by 2. I can also make it 3, and it will change to be 3. Now let's say I only want to scale the x-axis, then I need to come and click on this little icon over here. And now if I put, let's say 1, only the x-axis will change. And let's go to this view, and you'll see that it's no longer a cube because we only changed the x-axis. Let's go back and change it to 3, and let's reset our camera so that we can view it. It's over here. Now for the size, same thing, you can change the X, the Y, the Z, or all of them. We also have something really cool here because we can actually change the corner of this item. So you can see that it has a little bit of a curve. And if I click on here and then go to corner, I can choose to change it. So I can choose to make it an exact sort of cube like this. Or I can choose to make it a little bit curvy. And obviously, as you keep going, it will increase. Now, obviously, there's so many different options over here that we can go over. But for now, I'm just going to show you how we can also change the color and the lighting. So I can click over here, and you've got different lighting types. Now, you've got Fong, for example. You also have Toon, which makes it more of like a cartoonish sort of material. And let's just change this to maybe, let's say, red, like this. And I'm going to increase it. Now, let's go. So you can see that we can sort of like change the color of it. And obviously, as we keep changing things, not everything will have the same sort of look. So we can change it from, if we select it again, we can change the lighting to from being 100 to, let's say, 60. And now you've got that sort of color. We can choose for it to be lambda. You can choose for it to be physical, which makes it look like a more physical item. And if I click on start, you can see that this now looks sort of more metallic, I guess. And again, we can go around it and you can see all the difference. So now what else can we edit from this right panel? Now you can see if I select an element, you can see that we've got a line to path. So we can create paths and set this up to it, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. You can also enable collision, so for it to interact with other elements, and again we'll go over all of these things, but for now we have an understanding on what the left side is and what the right side is. Now let's have a look on something else. If I go ahead and click anywhere else on the canvas, you see that this changes. And if I actually select any other element, you see that based on the item that I'm selecting, the options do change. And that's because each of these items and each of the items that we're going to be using in the future have a different set of options that we can play around with and that we can change. So we already discovered this, and I'm obviously not going to go over each single option for each single element. So what I maybe recommend you do is add elements and go over them and see what you can do. But something else that I want to show is that if you click on the home page, you've got something here, and now you have a few different options that you can select. You can play around of the options of the element itself or the canvas itself. So if I select on a random screen, you can choose the light, you can sort of add physics, you can add some fog, you can add some global settings for everything to be adjusted to, and you can also add things like images and media and so on. Now that we've understood exactly what the right side does and what the left side does, let's actually have a look at how we can add elements and also what this area here does. Now I'm going to start from right to left. This sort of gives us some of the more like important commands in my opinion. These are like sort of adjusting in settings. This is to manage elements. This is actually to add elements and even export your project. Now the first thing is this button on the right. It says play, and if I click on it, that makes me interact and play with the things that I added exactly as if I would have published this. And through here you can also make this sort of like full screen. You can also edit the width and the height from it and so on. If I click exit, I exit sort of that mode, and on the side right next to it we've got export, and over here you get the option to actually export your project or publish it in so many different ways. You've got a public URL which you can click on, and once I click update public URL, there we go, I can actually take this URL and I can paste it into any browser and I'll be able to actually interact with my project. That's how easy it is to actually publish an element. And again, we do that by clicking on export, and then we have all these options for us to play with. You also have so much different options like adding a setting, adding different scenes and so on, and we're going to go over that in a few seconds as well. But the most important thing is that you also have options to add different settings, and I think that's important because you might be wanting to publish this for mobile phones. Let's continue moving. Over here you've got the zoom, and you can choose, for example, to work at a 25% zoom. You can choose to be at 100, which is what I usually play with, but you also have so much different options that you can play around with. Over here you've got an edit frame, and this allows you to actually edit what you can see or what you can work with. So let's say you want to create this for a mobile phone, then you can adjust this screen so that it looks like a mobile phone. After that you've got comments. So this is very important, but let's say you're working in a team and you want to leave a comment on this element. You can come ahead and write something like make sure this is blue. And now anytime someone in your team logs in, or even for yourself, if you log in again, you'll be able to see this comment that says make sure this is blue, so you remember how to deal with it. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. Yep. Now over here you've got your selector tool, and this just allows you to select different elements. By default, I'm pretty sure this is already what happens. Now there's a few different things that you can do over here, starting with the vector. So over here I can create an item manually like this, and this becomes an object that I can interact with. As you can see, a 2D object. I'm going to delete it. You also have some default objects. So you've got things like the sphere, which you can add and then adjust over here. You've got cubes, which we already added, but why not? Let's just add it. And let's reset the camera because I'm not too sure how I'm looking right now. There we go. You got text, so you can add text and you can add any content over here. So let's say something like hello. Let's also change the color of it to be white, and you can see that it's over here. And then you've got some 2D objects. But the best thing about Spline is that it comes with a huge library that we can use. So if I click on plus, you've got so many different normal objects here, such as like input. You can create a path, and we're gonna go over all of these in one of the videos. A backdrop, so you can add a backdrop. You can add so many different things here that we can use. But my favorite thing is that you can click on the library and you'll be introduced with a huge library of items and elements that you can add and interact with and edit straight away. Now, first of all, you've got objects and you've got scenes. And scenes are like different little projects that you can switch between. So let's say you want to make an entire game and it has 5 levels, then you have 5 scenes. Each level will belong to a scene, and you can actually input an entire set of scenes. Or we can go to objects, and here you've got so many different elements that you can add. For example, let's add a building or maybe a character, and let's maybe add Gregor. So I can click on it, or I can just add it over here. And you can see that now we've got Gregor over here. And the best thing is that it is actually 3D. There we go. But something else is, if you have a look on the left side here, we got Gregor added. But because Gregor is made out of multiple different elements, what we can look at is that we can actually look at the breakdown of those elements. So I can open this, and you've got so many different options, like the ears. And even if I click on ears, we've got different things in the ears, like the knobs, the colors, everything. Let's say, for example, I want to go over this. Now, if I increase it, I can actually change how his jacket looks like. I can change his eyes. I can change his entire head or the tilting of it, so we can make it up. It's a ball, so it might not actually make a difference. Yep, there we go. So we can change his smile. Whatever it is, you can add and change different things to make things have a different color. Now you can see that over here, someone created an element, and even if we want to change, for example, the color of what he's wearing, we can do so easy. And I'll actually get into that and character development very soon, but I wanted to show you that we can add as many elements, and we can then edit each single component from the element using our panel on the left side here. And if I look on assets, now we've got all the different materials used by any of our elements. Thanks so much. I think in this tutorial we learned a lot. We learned about the panel, all the panels, the left side, the center, and the right panel. We learned about how we can export our project, how we can add different elements, how we can edit elements, and also the perspective and the camera of our project. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope that you will come again, because we have so many different tutorials coming. Like I mentioned, we actually pre-recorded like 20 of these, and I'm just gonna upload them every like 2 days or something like that. Let me know in the comments if there's something else that you would like to learn, or something else that you would like to understand about Spline specifically, and I'll make sure to include it in a future video. Thanks so much. I hope you do leave a subscribe and a like, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you.